that America's best days are yet to come. I urge my colleagues to vote against this can't-do Republican budget and for the Democratic alternative. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized. The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves his time. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to the Republican budget. Once again, the Republicans move a slash-and-burn budget that would turn Medicare into a private voucher system and would force seniors to spend more than $6,000 out of pocket every additional year. It would gut Medicaid, education programs, medical research and transportation, among other things. You name it, they devastate it. First, the Republican budget calls for a staggering $10 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthy and large corporations over 10 years. It would pay for it by closing unspecified tax loopholes, but this is a fraud. For a loophole closing of this magnitude, the Republicans would have to get rid of all the tax breaks the middle class depends on. Loopholes like the mortgage interest deduction, tax exclusion for employer-sponsored health insurance, and charitable donations. This won't happen, which is why the Republicans won't name any of their loophole closings. The Republican budget then proposes $5.3 trillion in non-defense discretionary spending cuts beyond what was agreed to in last year's debt ceiling, $1.2 trillion beyond. It would slash $860 billion from Medicare, and all to pay for tax cuts because it wouldn't balance the budget till 2040 because these cuts are to pay for the tax cuts for the wealthy. For shame. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin reserves his time. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I inquire as to how much time is remaining?
The gentleman from Maryland has 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The debate we've had this afternoon is not whether we should reduce the deficit, whether we should reduce the debt, but how we do it, the choices that we make in reaching that goal. We support what has been described as a balanced approach, the same approach taken by every bipartisan group that's looked at this challenge. That approach says, yes, we need to make cuts, but we should also cut special interest tax loopholes for the purpose of reducing the deficit. We should also ask folks at the very high end of the income ladder to go back to the same tax rates they were paying during the Clinton administration. Our colleagues reject that balanced approach. I have not heard one of our Republican colleagues say that they're prepared to take 1 penny from closing a tax loophole, 1 penny from getting rid of an oil subsidy for the purpose of deficit reduction. And when you do that, when you say we're not going to ask the wealthiest to share greater responsibility, you have to take your budget cuts out on everyone and everything else. That's why they slashed the transportation funding next year by 46%, kicking the economy when it's down. That's why they end the Medicare guarantee for seniors. That's why they reopen the prescription drug donut hole. That's why their budget cuts Medicaid by 1/3 by the year 2022 in the name of repairing the social safety net. That's not repairing the social safety net. That's blowing a hole in protections for the most vulnerable Americans. That is not a choice the American people want to make. The American people would choose a balanced approach. They would not choose another round of tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans at the expense of seniors, at the expense of middle-income Americans, at the expense of important investments. They would reject that approach. I urge my colleagues to reject that approach and adopt the balanced Democratic alternative. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself the remainder of our time. When we confronted the 2008 economic crisis, which launched us into the worst recession since the Great Depression, which threw millions of people out of work, which lost trillions of dollars in wealth and retirement savings for millions of Americans, that crisis caught us by surprise. We didn't see it coming. And out of that came very ugly legislation that lots of us supported. Mr. Chairman, this one is the most predictable economic crisis we've ever had. And we have a Senate that is chosen for 3 years in a row to just do nothing. We have a president who, for the 4th budget in a row, proposes to do nothing to fix it. In fact, he makes it worse. Here is what we're trying to do. We're trying to go to the country and to offer them a solution. We don't think the country is headed in the right direction right now because a debt crisis is coming. So we feel morally bound and actually legally bound, because the budget requires that we pass a budget, the Budget Act, to offer a solution and an alternative. Fundamental tax reform to get job creators creating jobs. Take away the special interest loopholes and tax shelters and treat everybody fairly. Stop raising the tax rate on successful small businesses to 45% like it's going to happen in January. Instead, keep their tax rates low so they can create jobs. Control spending. Reform our welfare system. We believe the American idea is essentially an opportunity society with a safety net, and we believe in a safety net that is there to help people who cannot help themselves, and to be there to help people who are down on their luck get back on their feet. But we do not want to convert this safety net into a hammock that lulls able-bodied people into lives of dependency and complacency, which drains them of their will and their incentive to make the most of their lives. We believe in a system of upward mobility and opportunity. We believe when we see Medicare and Medicaid going bankrupt, we should fix that. Let's let the states innovate and create and have good solutions that meet the needs of their populations by giving them more control over Medicaid. They run it already right now. They just have all these government rules and regulations from Washington. Stop the rationing board from denying care to current seniors. Get rid of that and replace it with a guarantee that current seniors get the promise made to them and future seniors actually have a program that's solvent. So instead of having 15 bureaucratic elites price control their program, allow 50 million seniors in the future to choose which one they want the best. A quarter of seniors already today pick among the plans, the private plans, to meet their needs. We want to keep giving them the choices. At the end of the day, it's about a choice of two futures. Do we want this path of debt, doubt, and decline, where we have a debt crisis, where the people that get hurt the first and the worst are those who need government the most? The poor, the people on the safety net, the elderly who depend on Medicare. Or are we going to get this debt under control and pay it off and give our children a better future? At the end of the day, it's a philosophy. What the other side is doing, what the President is proposing, is that elites in the bureaucracy who are unelected, they make the decisions. In my judgment, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, that's paternalistic, it's arrogant, it's condescending. So the question really is who do you want to be in charge of your life? You or these cronies in government? Do we want to keep taking money from job creators, from families, and sending it to Washington so they can distribute it to their cronies, so they can distribute it to whoever has the clout, so they can make all these decisions in our lives on health care and financial services and education and the environment and energy? If we keep surrendering our liberties and our freedom and our dollars, we won't have the right to pursue happiness as we see happiness in our own lives. The idea of this country is that our rights come from nature and God to us automatically before government. Our rights don't come from government. But the idea that's being perpetrated, the path the President's putting us on, is one where he and his elites in Washington, they know better. They define our rights for us. They regulate, ration, and redistribute them for us. Whatever you call that, Mr. Chairman, that is not the American idea. We have a profound responsibility to look our children in the eye, like our parents did to us, and fix this country's problems so they can have a more prosperous future. We know, without a shadow of a doubt, it's irrefutable, the next generation is going to be worse off. We know that if we allow this debt crisis to continue, if we allow it to kick in, and the experts tell us it could be as little as 2 years away, everybody's going to get hurt. The economy is going to go down. We have a moral obligation to do something about that. And what we're saying is do it now, do it on our own terms, do it in a way where people can see the reforms that are necessary so they're gradual, and do it in a way so that we can keep the promises the government has made to people who've already retired, who count on government the most. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, this is about choices. And we are going to give the country a choice of two futures so they can decide whether or not we want to maintain the American idea in this country.
Gentleman's time has expired. All time for general debate has expired. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady, and the gentlewoman from New York, Mrs. Maloney, each will control 30 minutes on the subject of economic goals and policies. Where's... The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady.
I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
You know, at the end of the day, the Republican budget developed by our budget chairman, Paul Ryan, is a jobs bill. We know America faces an unemployment crisis today greater than any time during the Depression. We know roughly 23 million Americans can't even find a full-time job. We know that while government spending has rebounded and how other factors have rebounded in this economy, what we know is that jobs haven't rebounded. In fact, there's fewer jobs in America today than when this president took his oath of office. So we're going to talk about this budget and its impact on America's economy. And the truth of the matter is, if you like the way our economy is going, if you think this is the best we can do, stick with the president's budget. Stick with the Democrats' budget. It stays the course. But if you think we can do better for American hard-working taxpayers and job seekers, there is a choice of two futures. Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to serve as the Vice Chairman of the Joint Economic Committee, the lead Republican for the House and Senate. I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of my fellow House Republicans, such as Dr. Burgess, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Duffy, Mr. Amash, Mr. Mulvaney, make as members of the Joint Economic Committee. We are here as a matter of law. Established in 1946 as the congressional counterpart to the President's Council of Economic Advisors, the Joint Economic Committee has provided timely insight on economic issues to the Congress for more than half a century. We helped lay the intellectual groundwork for the Kennedy tax cut in 1964. And its 1980 report, Plugging in the Supply Side, established the credibility of supply-side economics and paved the way for the Reagan tax cut in 1981. The Joint Economic Committee examines economic developments and evaluates the economic ramifications of policies being considered by the Congress, such as this budget. And work by the JEC Republicans received national attention during the debate over President Obama's plan to nationalize health care in the 111th Congress. And since the Humphrey Hawkins Full Employment and Balanced Growth Act of 1978, the Joint Economic Committee has performed an important function in this, the annual budget process, advising members of Congress on the potential economic impact the policies set forth in the President's budget and the budget resolution we consider today. Is for this purpose we come to the House floor this evening. Well, let's begin our assessment of the House budget by discussing some very key economic principles. Real growth in the economy, the foundation for creating jobs along Main Street for hard-working Americans, it comes from the private sector and not from government. The Joint Economic Committee has examined for the last 40 years the relationship between changes in government spending and jobs along Main Street, private payroll employment. And what's clear is that there is not a tight relationship, there is an inverse relationship. As federal government spending grows, jobs along Main Street shrink. And likewise, when the federal government takes a smaller share of resources from Main Street, more hardworking taxpayers find jobs as payroll employment increase. And this chart shows the blue being federal government spending, the red being jobs along Main Street. Every time Washington grows, Main Street shrinks. My colleagues across the aisle argue that federal spending should increase when private job growth plummets, but even during periods of sustained increases in federal spending and investment, jobs along Main Street have remained low or negative. And put simply, federal spending doesn't create jobs. Only when federal spending subsides do jobs grow. Next, there's a very close economic relationship, though, between what we call private, non-residential fixed investment growth. What that means is when businesses invest in buildings and software equipment technology, jobs along Main Street grow. This chart shows, again, since 1971, in blue, the private investment, business, software equipment, buildings, in red, job growth along Main Street, and it shows almost a nearly identical correlation. So in the end, growing jobs in America depends upon more investment in America, not federal government spending, more investment to create those jobs. In spite of that evidence, 40 years of proven evidence, the White House, President Obama, and congressional Democrats have only pushed us deeper and deeper into debt. We have to remind ourselves that both the debt we hold to the public and our gross federal debt are reaching new post-war levels. They've never been this high since World War II. Publicly held federal debt roughly doubled to nearly 70% of the size of our economy in just the 4 years leading up to 2011. The same can be said of the gross federal debt, again reaching 100% of our economy, dangerous levels to the economy, dangerous levels to our credit rating, dangerous levels to our investment. And according to the President's latest budget estimates, this gross debt isn't expected to go under 100% for years and years. In fact, he proposes a budget that never balances. The President proposes a budget that takes us deeper and deeper and deeper into debt and hangs an anchor around America's economy. There is a better solution, and the model's right in front of us. All you have to do is compare President Obama's spending-driven approach to the economy and look at the last serious recession, that which President Reagan had to tackle. Despite bailouts and cash for clunkers and auto bailouts and stimulus and deficit spending in the trillions of dollars, you can tell this recovery continues to struggle. A good comparison is the Reagan recovery, because that recovery was fueled by Main Street, by private investment and free enterprise, just the opposite of President Obama and congressional Democrats. The White House's current focus on massive increases in federal spending, expanding government beyond imaginable levels to encourage growth, has been a failure. Meanwhile, the smaller government, free market approach utilized by the Reagan administration proved to be much more successful. Looking at the comparisons between the two, at this same point in the recession, President Reagan's increase in jobs was up almost 10%. President Obama is less than a third of that. The unemployment rate had dropped 3.5% at this point in the recovery under President Reagan. It's less than half of that under President Obama. In average growth, how did the economy grow? Under the free market, less spending approach of President Reagan, it grew by 6%. President Obama's record is about a third of that. These policies by this President and this Democrat Congress of the past 2 years, prior to Republican control, has failed. Point of the matter is, government needs to get out of the way. We need to cut government spending. We need to hold the line and reform our terrible tax system. We need to free our small businesses from the oppressive level of regulation coming out of Washington. Mr. Speaker, in a moment I'm going to talk about the tax reality. We're going to talk about how the current budget that we're living in today inflates our prices and damages real business. But at this time I have a number of key speakers from the Joint Economic Committee in our conference I want to get to, so at this point I would reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am afraid that our colleagues have made a slight mistake in naming their plan. This budget should be called the Road to Austerity, because it is a plan that is most noteworthy for the rather harsh austerity it demands of the many and the lavish benefits it extends to the few. It clearly envisions a rising tide of selective tax cuts that would lift all yachts but leave most dinghies. Our Republican friends like to talk about making the hard choices, and what they propose here would indeed make things much harder for millions of Americans. But it will also make things much easier for a fortunate few millionaires and billionaires. That's their plan. But before we get to the specifics of the plan, tonight it's important to examine where we are before we decide where we want to go. Because of President Obama's economic policies, there are continuing signs of economic progress and recovery. For example, in the fourth quarter of 2011 and through the beginning of this year, there is fresh new data showing that the recovery is gaining strength. The economy has added more than 200,000 jobs for 3 straight months. And as you can see from this chart, private sector employment has increased for 24 consecutive months. And during these past 24 months, the economy has added almost 4 million private sector jobs. On this chart, the red bars are the Bush administration, and it shows that in the closing days, the closing months, this country was losing over 700,000 jobs per month. The blue bars are the Obama administration, and you can see the steady, slow gains and the 24 months of gains of jobs in the private sector. This chart is similar to one that was presented by Chairman Bernanke in his testimony before the Financial Services Committee in the Humphrey Hawkins hearings. This is from his report. It shows the low, deep area we were when President Obama took office, losing so many jobs, and because of his policies, the steady gain and the continuing gain we hope to see. Actions taken by the President and Congress, including passage of the Recovery Act and recent legislation to continue federal unemployment insurance and extend the payroll tax cut through 2012, have played an important role in driving this economic recovery and private job gain. Few would disagree, however, that to reach this point has taken longer than we would have liked. It has required fiscal interventions to sustain and strengthen the economy and to support those harmed by the Great Recession. And it has required a variety of creative and effective approaches from the Federal Reserve to ease monetary policy and boost growth. I would also like to show the chart on unemployment. And it shows that the unemployment rate has fallen significantly from 9.1% last August to 8.3% in February, which is well below the peak of 10% reached in October 2009. So again, this is positive signs under the Obama administration. Still, there are far too many Americans hurting. The reality is that we have a long way to go to regain the ground that we lost during the Great Recession. 12.8 million Americans remain unemployed, and more than 4 out of 10 unemployed have been jobless for more than 6 months. The share of those unemployed and out of work for more than 6 months has been greater than 40% since December of 2009, a period of time that has been unprecedented. Clearly, cutting further into the unemployment rate and bringing down the rate of long-term unemployed must be continuing priorities of this Congress. And I can say that Democrats will not be satisfied until every American who wants a job can get a job. So while we have made some economic progress, there are many challenges ahead. While GDP has grown for 10 straight quarters, GDP growth in the first quarter of 2012 is projected to slow to an annual rate of just 1.9%. This is far from robust economic growth. The European community's economic weakness may present new headwinds in the months ahead. And the recent spike in U.S. oil and gas prices leaves consumers with fewer dollars in their wallets for other purchases, putting new pressure on the recovery. Clearly, we need Congress to stay vigilant on the fiscal side. Part of this fiscal vigilance is rejecting austerity plans and short-sighted budget cuts that will jeopardize the recovery while harming the most vulnerable among us, including low-income Americans and senior citizens. The reality is that the majority's Ryan budget harms those who need help and doles out tax breaks and benefits to those who don't. Let me be clear as I possibly can. The Ryan budget passed by this House, if it was passed by this House, would risk our recovery. The majority's budget resolution for 2013, the Ryan budget, abandons the economic recovery, contains policies that ship American jobs overseas, and harms our nation's economic competitiveness. And by slashing programs that low-income and elderly Americans count on, while cutting taxes for corporations and the wealthiest individuals, the Ryan budget provides the latest, clearest example of Republican economic priorities. Just like last year, the Ryan budget ends the Medicare guarantee, shifts the burden of rising health care costs onto seniors, and shreds our nation's social safety net. These are bad choices for America. The Ryan budget extends the Bush tax cuts and lowers the current top tax rate from 35% to 25%, giving millionaires and billionaires a 10% point tax cut. Instead of asking the wealthiest Americans to do what they can to help restore fiscal responsibility and preserve vital services, Republicans would choose to slash support for tuition assistance and other services in order to pay for tax cuts that provide a huge benefit to millionaires and hurt America's working middle class. The Ryan budget includes the latest attempt to end Medicare as we know it. Instead of strengthening Medicare, Ryan's plan would replace Medicare's guaranteed benefits with a voucher for Medicare or private insurance, creating higher costs for seniors and unraveling the traditional Medicare program. Initial analysis show that the plan would cut future spending by $5,900 per senior, shifting costs to seniors and diminishing their access to quality care. Republicans continue to propose ideas to end Medicare, even though 70% of Americans support keeping the program as it is. The Ryan budget would strip away health care benefits for millions of American families by repealing the Affordable Care Act. Chairman Ryan's plan would eliminate benefits that are providing stable and secure care for millions of Americans and go back to the days when insurance companies would deny coverage or jack up prices or just refuse coverage because of pre-existing conditions, whenever and however they pleased. The Republican budget would get rid of benefits Americans are already receiving, such as the following: free preventive health services for 32 million seniors, $3.2 billion in prescriptive drug savings for 5.1 million seniors by reopening the donut hole, reducing drug coverage, preventive services like mammograms, cervical cancer screenings, and contraception for over 20 million women, coverage for 2.5 million young Americans who have already gained coverage on their parents' insurance plans, protection from insurance companies canceling coverage when people get sick and from denying coverage to children with pre-existing conditions. And the Ryan budget also eliminates benefits slated to help Americans in the coming 2 years, such as access to stable and secure care for 32 million Americans, protections against being discriminated against due to gender or pre-existing conditions, or facing limits on coverage for over 105 million Americans. Chairman Ryan's budget does something else. It breaks the agreement made last year to reduce the deficit, backing out of the bipartisan deal Republicans and Democrats made on government spending. Many will recall last year, in order to avert an unprecedented national default, Democrats and Republicans passed the Budget Control Act. The Ryan budget breaks that agreement, that bipartisan agreement, by slashing government services by $19 billion more than was agreed to in the Budget Control Act. Republicans would break their word on spending and reduce services and investments, all while slashing tax rates for millionaires and billionaires. The Ryan budget block grants Medicaid, slashing $810 billion from the program, jeopardizing nursing home care for seniors, and shifting costs to states. Chairman Ryan's plan reaffirms the Republican call to end Medicaid as a safety net, jeopardizing vital services that seniors depend on, like nursing home care and home health care aides, and shifts the burden of rising health care costs to cash-strapped states. According to nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, these dramatic reductions in spending, and I quote, might involve reduced eligibility coverage of fewer services, lower payments to providers, or increased cost sharing by beneficiaries, all of which would reduce access to care, end quote. The Ryan budget increases the burden on low-income Americans. The Republican budget block grants and slashes funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program by almost $123 billion over 10 years, jeopardizing economic security for millions of Americans. The Ryan budget would also just pull the plug on America's clean energy industries. Instead of moving toward a clean economy and reducing dependence on foreign fossil fuels, Chairman Ryan's plan pulls the plug on support for clean energy technology and simply calls for opening more land to drilling, even though American oil production is at its highest level since 2003, and the oil and gas industry is using less than 1/3 of the 75 million of land offered for development. And it continues the subsidies to the oil industry. This plan would pull Americans out of the race to create well-paying new jobs and dominate the growing global market for clean energy technology. The alternative, of course, is the Democratic plan, which takes a totally different approach, a balanced approach of shared sacrifice that meets the nation's need to invest in the future, keeps our country strong, and preserves Medicare and our social safety net, while continuing tax relief for working families. For me, the choice is easy, not hard. I urge you to join me in supporting the Democratic plan, supporting Medicare, supporting working families, and supporting the middle class, and supporting the firm belief that the American dream is alive and well. I preserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. The gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 4 minutes to one of the key new members of the Joint Economic Committee, a gentleman from Wisconsin who understands you can't tax your way back to a strong economy or to a balanced budget. Mr. Duffy.
Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the gentleman from Texas for yielding. To be clear, we owe over $15 trillion in national debt. This year we're going to borrow $1.3 trillion. The couple of years before that, every year we borrowed $1 trillion. And I hear my friends across the aisle talk about a balanced approach. I believe the American people want a balanced budget. I think we need to be clear on what the Democrat proposals are. If you look at what my friends across the aisle have proposed in regard to a budget, it never balances. There are deficits and debt as far as the eye can see. The President's budget, there are debts and deficits as far as the eye can see. It never balances. Then we look at the Democrat-controlled Senate. For 3 years, they haven't passed a budget. And so I think the American people want honesty. They want to make sure that the Democrats are honest with regard to how much debt we're going to pass off to our next generation. They want us to be honest with regard to how much debt the Democrats want the Chinese to buy from America. I think they want us to be honest in regard to tax rates, that as of April 1st, America is going to have the highest tax rate in the industrialized world, the highest tax rate. And my Democrat friends across the aisle, they want to raise taxes even further. And so when a business is looking at where it's going to invest, is it going to be in America or somewhere else? Or if you're looking at investing in America or somewhere else, they look at tax rates. And when we talk about shipping jobs overseas, it's these tax policies from my friends across the aisle that ship my jobs in Wisconsin overseas. They talk about fairness and wanting to balance the budget on a fair playing field. Let's take a look at this chart. Today, the two top tax rates are 33 and 35%. If you want to get the deficit down to 3% of the economy, you have to raise those top tax rates to 72 and 77%. If you want to get it down to 2% of debt to the size of our economy, you have to raise the top tax rate to 86 and 91%. The bottom line is, if you wanted to pay off the debt with the current spending agenda of the Democrats, you could never do it by taxing. You could take all of the wealth, all of the income of those top tax earners, and you would never balance the budget. Americans want you to be honest in regard to the fallacy that you can tax your way out of these debts and deficits. I think America wants you to be honest in regard to your plan for Medicare. The plan that says you want to take $500 billion out of Medicare and use it for some other group, taking seniors' money that they have invested in that plan for their lifetime, take $500 billion out and use it for another group of people. That's unconscionable. But moreover, you want to set up a board of 15 unelected bureaucrats that are going to ration our seniors' care, a board that's going to systematically reduce reimbursements to doctors, hospitals, and clinics, and in essence will impact the access and quality of care, not of some future generation of seniors, but of today's seniors. So when we talk about taking care of our seniors, let's have a plan that truly takes care of our seniors, which is the House plan. I mean, I hear about a guaranteed benefit that the Democrats talk about for our seniors. There's no guaranteed benefit for our seniors. They're rationing it down to nothing. I think it's important we talk about a bold plan, bold leadership that's going to resolve the problems that we face in this country, a plan that is going to put us on a path to sustainability, that will balance our budget, that will pay off our debt, a plan that implements pro-growth policies so our economy can expand. The gentleman yield 30 more seconds.
Yeah, yield 30 seconds. The
gentleman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
A plan that will put us on a pro-growth path, but also a plan that will preserve and protect Medicare and save it for future generations. I would ask my friends across the aisle to stop hand-wringing, but to join us in bold leadership, and I would submit that their children and grandchildren, some not yet born, would applaud their bold leadership to save our country from this massive debt that will be their future if we don't act. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from New York.
I yield 4 minutes to the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, a member of the Budget Committee, Ellison Schwartz.
Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized for 4 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just wanted to add a few words that some of these kinds of issues have been talked about all day or all afternoon, but I did feel compelled to rise again to talk about what really is at stake here and what is truly a sharp contrast between the Republican budget and the Democratic budget alternatives. Our budgets, as our federal budgets, should reflect our priorities and values as a nation. Our Democratic budget moves America forward by building for the future, by investing in innovation, in education, in energy, with confidence and expectation about the opportunities that are available to us in this country. But it also ensures that we keep our promises to America's seniors by protecting and strengthening Medicare. The Republican plan for America moves our nation backward and harms our economic competitiveness now and into the future by choosing sustained tax cuts for millionaires over small businesses and jobs for the middle class, by choosing tax breaks for our biggest companies rather than investments in our future economic growth. Their vision is one in which college becomes more expensive for millions of Americans, where investments in innovation and research are slashed, and we stop being the leaders in the world on bioscience and energy. And it abandons seniors in their most vulnerable years. Rather than balancing the budget by shifting costs to Medicare beneficiaries, the Democratic budget reduces the rate of growth in health care spending through initiatives that will increase our value and efficiency in our health care system. It will contain costs in Medicare and for all Americans. Millions of seniors rely on Medicare every day for their life-saving medications, treatments, and doctor visits. We cannot abandon our obligation to our seniors, and the Democratic budget does not. The Democratic budget takes a balanced approach to meeting our nation's fiscal challenges. It makes targeted investments needed to spur economic growth, and yes, it preserves the Medicare guarantee and protects tax relief for middle-class families, a high priority for us, one that is much less, if a priority at all, for the Republican budget. Our budget tackles the federal deficit by reducing the federal deficit as a share of GDP by more than 8%, so that it is 2.7% of GDP within 10 years. We make some hard choices about how we cut spending, but our budget has a commitment to cut spending by over $2 trillion. So it reduces the deficit responsibly and fairly. It protects our seniors and our middle class. And it does not ask either our seniors or the middle class to shoulder our fiscal challenges alone. We have a choice to make, and we will be making it this evening and tomorrow as we decide which budget is better for the America that we dream about, that we expect, and that we work for. I urge my colleagues to stand up for a responsible budget that, yes, makes spending cuts and also makes smart investments, that grows our economy but also meets our obligations, that respects our values and who we are as Americans. It creates opportunities and it is fair to America. I suggest that we vote yes for the Democratic budget and protect America and our values and grows our economy. And I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back her time. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentlelady from North Carolina who serves on an important small business committee and who is a nurse and understands our health care challenges in America.
Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the chairman for allowing me to be here tonight to help in this effort. Mr. Speaker, the President's economic agenda has failed the American people. The President's economic agenda has failed our job creators, our seniors, and future generations. The President's policies have failed and are making the economy worse. The President's budget calls for more failed attempts to tax, spend, borrow, and bail out our way to job creation. I'd like to read a quote from a third party that addresses this issue. Bernie Marcus, former chairman and CEO of Home Depot. If we don't lower spending and if we don't deal with paying down the debt, we are going to have to raise taxes. Even brain-dead economists understand that when you raise taxes, you cost jobs. Because the President cannot stand on his record, he has regrettably turned to the politics of envy and division. There is nothing fair about making our children and our grandchildren pay the bills for what the President's own fiscal commission co-chairs called the most predictable economic crisis in our history. I have a couple more quotes, and these aren't from conservative publications, mind you. The USA Today, Obama's budget plan leaves debt bomb ticking. The Boston Herald, President Barack Obama has apparently decided that he is not going to be part of the solution to the nation's enormous deficit, which would make him, yes, part of the problem. Mr. Speaker, our friends across the aisle continuously discuss the issue of Medicare, which we know is one of the growing problems when we're dealing with the debt. Our Democrat friends continue to say that Republicans are cutting Medicare and changing it as we know it. And yet, in Obamacare, they cut $500 billion out of Medicare. I have a quote from the Congressional Budget Office as well, and my friend across the aisle had one a few moments ago. This quote is from 12/1909. The government takeover of health care could, quote, reduce access to care or diminish the quality of care. I also have a quote from the Government Accountability Office. Medicare remains on a path that is fiscally unsustainable over the long term. Mr. Speaker, the House Republicans we are going to pass a jobs bill. We are going to pass a budget. May I have 30 more seconds?
Speaker, I yield an additional 30 seconds.
Gentlelady is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
This budget includes fundamental pro-growth tax reform, eliminating corporate loopholes and subsidies to help create jobs. It addresses the real drivers of our debt, saving our social safety net programs from going bankrupt. And it calls for repeal of the government takeover of health care and other job-destroying spending. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to vote for the House budget bill. Thank you very much, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentlelady from New York.
May I inquire how much time remains?
Gentlelady from New York has 10½ minutes remaining.
Okay. I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee, Congressman Cooper.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding. This, unfortunately, is one of the most partisan weeks in Washington, as each side presents their own budget. I urge members to weigh these budgets very carefully. Unfortunately, we have very little time to do so. The entire debate for the Republican and Democratic budgets is some 4 hours. There will be many alternative budgets presented. The one that I'm most interested in, the Simpson-Bowles endorsed budget, will come up later tonight, which is a big schedule change. It had been expected to tomorrow, but we will only have a total of 10 minutes to explain the only bipartisan budget that will be offered. There are 6 or 7 budgets being offered, but there's only one that's bipartisan. There are many excellent features in the Democratic budget and in the Republican budget, but there's only one that has the support of folks on both sides of the aisle. I hope that members choose carefully, even in this, the most partisan of weeks, because it's almost a David versus Goliath situation when you have 10 minutes versus 4 hours. I hope that members will look at the details of these budgets and realize that hidden in the details are lots of massive changes to lots of massive programs. But if we don't let ideology control, if we look at the basics and realize that America does have a deficit and debt problem, as the White House acknowledges and as our Republican friends acknowledge, if we respect each other and understand that we have to have real revenues and entitlement reform, there's still really only one plan that offers both. And I did not originate it, but I'm thankful that Simpson and Bowles, with their report of a year and a half ago, introduced such a plan. And tonight, later in the debate, in an hour or two, members will have the first opportunity in either the House or the Senate to consider that. So these are very important issues that we're facing. I wish it were not a David and Goliath sort of situation. It's almost like David versus 2 Goliaths, because the institutional infrastructure in Washington supporting either the Republican budget or the Democratic budget are massive. I think that once you look at fundamentals, you see that there's got to be a way where Americans can work together. The folks I hear from back home, and I assume it's true in every state, want us to stop the partisan bickering, want us to work together. And I'm thankful that our Republican friends allowed the Simpson-Bowles bipartisan budget to be considered. But for members to only have 10 minutes of debate to consider it is going to be very difficult. So I'm hopeful that members, as they're sitting in their offices tonight, as they're interrupting their dinners, as they're contemplating these issues, will focus not only on the important Joint Economic Committee issues that have been raised by both sides this evening, but will also focus on the details of the budgets they're about to vote on. We had anticipated that the vote on the Simpson-Bowles alternative would be tomorrow morning. That's what we had been told, but an hour or so ago they suddenly had a change of plans. We feel that we're gaining momentum, and I think that's evidenced by the fact that most folks, the interest groups in Washington, are gearing up to either support us or oppose us. But I think that members should weigh their decision tonight very carefully. I thank the gentlelady for yielding. Thanks.
Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to a key member of the Joint Economic Committee and the Energy and Commerce Committee, one of the most knowledgeable on health care. He is a physician who's delivered more than 3,000 babies, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Burgess.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
And I thank the chairman for yielding. You know, a lot of people have asked why, if you're going to do a Republican budget, why do you even involve yourself in the president's new health care law? And why is it necessary for the Republican budget to repeal the president's health care law and advance bipartisan solutions that take power away from the government and give it back to the people? Well, the Joint Economic Committee prepared a chart dealing with the Affordable Care Act some 2 years ago. And it's an involved chart, and you look at it and it needs to be right side up, of course. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. It makes just as much sense upside down. But the only reason I wanted you to turn it over is because you look at this thing, and instead of the patient being at the center of all of this, the patient is way down here at the bottom. This chart was prepared, again, 2 years ago by the committee staff at the Joint Economic Committee. And this is precisely the reason why the Affordable Care Act has to be pulled out by the roots in order for us to get any semblance of economic sanity in this country. And ignore the fact for a moment that this thing busts the bank. Ignore the fact that this is a drain on the federal treasury unlike anything we've ever seen before. The bottom line is this just does not work. Now, I spent yesterday at the Supreme Court, got to hear the oral arguments before the Supreme Court, and it was astonishing to hear the arguments put forward why we had to take over 1/6 of the economy, why we had to expand government power in a way that it's really going to fundamentally redefine the relationship of the government with the American people. And the reason was because, well, the uninsured, they cost us so much money. I got to tell you something. That's nonsense. The uninsured, yes, they may cost a little bit at the margin of the total health care system, but what's the real cost driver of health care in this country? What's the real reason that health insurance is going inexorably up and up and up? It is because the federal government does not pay its freight for Medicare, Medicaid, and S-CHIP. And it is the cross-subsidization from the private sector to fill that hole by the public sector that causes the cost of insurance to go up so much. And I was astounded that this argument was not made before the Supreme Court. I was concerned that they might be arguing from false premises. But regardless, what is the solution then to fix this problem of health care costs going up? Well, we're going to put a subsidy out there for the middle class in the exchanges. Well, that'll help. And then the worst part, we're going to double Medicaid. Medicaid is the problem. Medicaid is the reason this cost is going up inexorably year over year over year. And what was the President's solution? What was Speaker Pelosi's solution? Let's double Medicaid in this country and see if that won't fix the problem. Will it fix the problem? I submit it will not. You ask yourself, how could the law be so convoluted as shown on this graph? And the reason is because if you look at the language that wrote that graph, this is not 2 copies of the law. This is 1 copy of the law in 2 volumes. How was it so badly done? You need do nothing more than look at the title page of H.R. 3590 from December 24th, 2009 in the Senate of the United States. Can I have additional 30 seconds?
Mr. Speaker, I yield the gentleman 30 seconds.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Christmas Eve, December 24, 2009, resolved that the bill from the House of Representatives, H.R. 3590, entitled An Act to Amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to modify first-time homebuyers' credit in the case of members of the armed forces and certain other federal employees. Wait a minute. That doesn't sound like a health care law. How to become a health care law? It's called an amendment to strike out all of the enacting clause after the enacting clause and insert the remaining 2,700 pages. I submit to you this thing was flawed from start to finish. It must be struck out by the roots. Otherwise, fiscal sanity cannot be restored to this country. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from New York.
I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman, Congressman Fatah from Pennsylvania.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady and I applaud her work on the Joint Economic Committee. I come this evening to suggest that it would indeed be cheaper for our country if we want to subordinate this great nation to other nations in this world. If we want to educate less of our children, if we want to invest less in innovation, if we want to do less in terms of providing for the well-being of our country, we could try to operate on the cheap. I don't think it's worthy of our House to consider a budget that would cut off America's global leadership position. As we see China, India, other countries, the European Union rising to become more and more economic competitors to the United States, this debate between Democrats and Republicans is much too small for this body. We need to be thinking about our country, thinking about the future of our country and its position in the world, and no one can intellectually argue that somehow it would be better for our nation to educate less of our children, to have less scientists or engineers, or to invest less in manufacturing and innovation. So I would ask the majority this evening that after we get finished with this part of this process, that we try to come together to think about not our party but positioning our country for future greatness. We have a grand legacy as a nation. And for us to come here and to say, well, the way we're going to solve this problem is we're just going to cut, cut, and cut. This is a budget that cuts trillions but doesn't get the budget in balance for the next 30 years. That really they are using the fiscal circumstances of the country to go after programs that they never supported anyway. This is not a worthy proposition for our House. I'm prepared to support the Democratic budget. I'm prepared to support Simpson-Bowles. I'm prepared to support raising additional revenue. The majority of our country believes that we should have a balanced approach. That is, we should cut programs we don't need, and we should raise the revenues we do need. We're at a 60-year low in tax rates, and the young lady who spoke on the other side said earlier that any economist will tell you that raising taxes, that you'll lose jobs. Well, let me tell you what the facts are. When under the Clinton administration, we raised taxes, we invested in education, we invested in clean energy, we created close to 23 million new jobs in this country, and every sector of our society improved. Yes, the rich got richer, but every other group of Americans also did better. Those are the facts. Facts are stubborn things. I hope that as a Congress, we can rise to the needs of this great nation. Thank you.
Gentleman from Texas.
I am pleased to yield 3 minutes to, again, another key freshman member of the Joint Economic Committee, also a member